there's worries about the content of various areas of science. Witness the skepticism about climate change. There are also worries about whether scientists are always pursuing questions that are the most urgent contributions to human well-being. And it's surely clear that even when there's relatively little dissent about scientific conclusions, that much of the knowledge that science acquires that's relevant to human concerns isn't well disseminated. So that's why I want to say that well-ordered science serves as a diagnostic tool. It focuses on three defects in which the sciences can go wrong. One defect is that they can just not ask the right questions. Another defect is that they may not arrive at answers by reliable methods, or even if they do arrive at answers by reliable methods, many people will not perceive them as doing so. And the third is that the information that they bring may be inaccessible to people who need that information. So with those questions in mind, we can approach the individual sciences and say, well, look, what is causing these failures? Are there systematic causes of that are contributing to some particular deficiency that we observe? And if so, what can we do to remedy it? So I'm not any longer trying to encourage the idea that there's this sort of ideal form towards which we should be advancing. I'm rather saying, think of this as a more or less healthy enterprise, and let's look for the places at which it's ailing or sick, and try to do something to fathom what's gone wrong and fix it. So this is very much in a pragmatist spirit. It's why my current book, in which I'm trying to work this sort of thing out, begins with concern for the concept of progress. I've come to see this concept as absolutely central to philosophy. And I'm hoping that I will be able to present these ideas in a way that will make them clearer and more vivid than I've managed to do so far.
Okay. The scientific controversies could be taken as signals of the failure of ordering science well. What's the nature and main causes of scientific controversies from well-ordered science?
Okay, so scientific controversies often arise, it seems to me, because the issues are very, very difficult and the evidence is not conclusive on one side or another. And the task of the social epistemologist when confronted with this is to find ways of ensuring that the controversy neither gets closed too quickly or remains, as it were, indefinitely protracted. So one problem is that you set up mechanisms within the social structure of science that leads to the scientific community jumping to conclusions before it's ready. And the other is that you have a situation where either the community itself can't reach consensus, even though it should, or it reaches consensus and that consensus is not trusted by the general public. All of these are ways in which things can go wrong. And so so what well-ordered science really does is try to highlight these possibilities and then ask us to go looking for them in particular places and asking what we can be doing about them.
Okay. And if we take in the climate change as a case for scientific controversies, what could we do as a philosopher for the...
Well, we thought about that. Evelyn Keller and I thought about that, and you try to explain things as clearly and accessibly, and I have to say as entertainingly as you can. I mean, the problem is to try to get the message across to a broader public in ways that will promote useful action. Philosophers can do this by clarifying things, but they can also, I think, do it by recognizing the forms of resistance and taking them seriously. And we wrote dialogues in part because we wanted to do that. We didn't want to say, oh, you stupid people out there who are resisting, you know, here you are, here are the arguments, now you should be convinced, and if you're not convinced, you're being, you know, irrational, unreasonable, stupid, and we should ignore you. Rather, we want to say, oh, let's take you seriously, let's try to go through this step by step and see if we can reach agreement. And after all, is part of the ideal of democracy with which I'm working. And that, I think, is a good way for philosophers to proceed with this.
Okay. Another thing is, if I can say that your philosophy is an effort to reform philosophy or science, or even philosophy as a whole, do you think Dewey's call for reforming philosophy is still needed to be accomplished?
Absolutely. I am right where Dewey was 100 years ago when he wrote The Need for a Recovery of Philosophy. I think philosophy has lost its way. I think philosophy of science is doing better than much of the rest of philosophy, but it's still sort of lost its way in large measure. And I think a reform is needed. And my goal in the rest of my academic career is to try to explain what reforms I have in mind and try and motivate people to see why I think reform might be needed. And I don't know how successful I will be at doing that. Probably not very successful, but I will give it a try. And my answer is a very Deweyan one. It's bringing philosophy back into the world and connecting it with human concerns. And I think we must do that, and we must also think much more largely as philosophers than we have been. I think we've tended to think that philosophy is micro-philosophy. It focuses on very small and well-defined questions and consists in exchanges in the journals that are read by maybe 5 to 10 people, and that's not what philosophy is all about. Dewey didn't believe that. I don't believe that. And I don't think that's what the philosophical tradition was all about either. So I'm on a campaign, and I'll do what I can.
Okay, and if so, we can see some kind of philosophy, maybe those literatures wrote for some experts, while another kinds of philosophy maybe write papers or books for the public. So it's this difference similar to science and literacy. I know your research interests also include philosophy in literature. So what's the relation among philosophy, science, and literature? What's the role of philosophy in contemporary world?
Okay, so like Dewey, I think that science is terrific, but I don't think it's the only terrific part of human culture. I think the arts and literature are really important to us, and in some of my work I've been trying to make a case for the importance and value of the arts. And this is actually, along with my work on religion, going to be folded in to the account that I give of society as a set of institutions and practices that are aimed at making for better societies and better individual lives, increased human well-being. And they do this in a variety of ways, and I think it's wrong to say that the arts and the literature are just frills and the sciences are the serious stuff. It's come to seem to me that these are both very important practices, and part of the project in which I'm engaged is to understand the relations between education and democracy and the roles that the sciences and the arts play in both spheres. So that's actually part of this much bigger project in which I'm engaged. I want us to take a number of different sides of human experience very seriously, and to come up with an integrated vision of how our lives are shaped by various of our practices, and how those practices are imperfect in various ways, and how the relations between them are sometimes imperfect, and how the imperfections might be tackled and improved. So I'm not yet ready to put all of this together, but the direction in which I'm going is a very large synthesis of lots of things that I've said in different places, seen within the broader perspective of the kind of pragmatism that I've been developing in recent years. And there will be in the middle of this some very traditional philosophical problems, but there will also be in it some very, what I think of as some very new philosophical problems that are different. And we'll have to see how it all turns out.
Okay, thank you, Professor. That's my probably the end of this.
I hope that was okay.
Yeah.